Bienvenidos a mi clase de español de hoy, otra vez. Hoy es episodio 14, episode 14, and we're going to be looking at the verb ser, el verbo ser. Now, guys, verbs, most of the time I think we're taught that verbs are words of action, of doing, if you like. And it's very easy, isn't it, to visualize things like to play, to kick, to eat, to speak, to write, to go out. These are all actions that we can kind of visualize. But the verb to be, ser in Spanish, is much harder for us to kind of visualize as an action. So the way I want you to think about this is the describing. It's the describing verb. In other words, it is the verb of am, is, are, and in the past tense, was and were. So for example, I am lazy. She is hardworking. They are mean or nasty. My hotel was comfortable. They were helpful, and so on. So not always, but often these words are followed by an adjective, a describing word, or you could have a whole phrase, couldn't you? So it was a very small hotel, where a very small is a complete, on its own, is a little phrase that's doing the describing. Or he is an extremely smart person, where the extremely smart person is the describing bit. Anyway, before we do that, primero, ahora, so primero is first or firstly, ahora, now, vamos a repasar, we are going to repasar, revise un poquito. So, empareja los adjetivos opuestos. The UE combination in Spanish, as I've already mentioned, is first of all is pronounced way, as in W-A-Y. So this word is opuestos. And often if you replace the UE with an O, when you see it in a Spanish word, it gives you a good idea of the meaning, not always, and that would give you opostos, wouldn't it? And opuestos means opposites. Empareja is kind of pair up. So pair up the adjectives opposite. So down here in a column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 adjectives. And across here, 5 adjetivos de carácter. So these are character or personality adjectives. And you need to, for example, with serio, in the 5 adjectives over here, you need to find the opposite adjective to serio. So if you think, for example, the opposite of serio is antipático, you're going to write antipático. I would encourage you guys to have un bolígrafo, a pen, un bolígrafo, y papel, paper of some sort, and to do these very quickly as written exercises. It doesn't have to be neat and tidy, but it helps you to remember things, and it helps your spelling in Spanish if you write these things. Also, the Wordmat, this thing that I've shown you now many times, if you haven't printed it off or haven't got access to it still, there's a link to it below the video here, and if you need to, you could actually use that to help you to do this activity. In many ways, it's perhaps better or best if you can do this from memory or a little bit of guesswork and see how you go. The word map, just a reminder, looks like this. And here down this column, a la derecha, derecha is right, as in right hand. Izquierda is left hand. So aquí, here, aquí, a la derecha, on the right are your adjectives of personality or character. So if you need to look at this, you can do. I'm going to get you to pause me and pair these 5 or create these 5 pairs of opposite adjectives Come back when you're ready and we will correct them together. Muy bien. Bueno. Entonces. Okay, so you should have had serio, gracioso. So serious, going with gracioso, funny. Tonto means kind of silly. It doesn't necessarily mean stupid, which is probably better. A better adjective would be estúpido, which is quite easy to remember. Estúpido. But tonto means kind of silly. So I've paired that with an opposite of listo, which means smart, as in clever. Perezoso, lazy, with trabajador, or if you're describing a female, trabajadora. So perezoso is lazy. Cariñoso is a really nice word, and it means caring. And actually, look, you've got most of the word caring in here, haven't you? C-A-R-I-N, or enye, actually. So caring or loving, it's that sort of idea. Yeah, caring or loving. And I paired that with antipático, meaning mean or nasty. Cariñoso, antipático. Divertido is fun. Aburrido is boring. So that makes a good opposite pair, doesn't it? Una pareja opuesta. Excelente. Entonces, vamos. Now, we talked about the describing verb ser, and we're going to look at that now in a bit more detail in the present tense for the time being. So, you might remember this, and we've already seen a couple of parts of the verb ser here. We've seen soy, I am, which hopefully we're starting to recognize, and es is the part of the verb that means is, as in he is, or she is, or it is as well. So S is really important, and it's easy to remember, isn't it? Because is and S, it sounds kind of the same in a way. Is, S. And if you remember, we did this in the context of something called comparatives, which is a flashy way of, grammatical way of saying when you want to compare things. So we started with más, meaning more. Que here meaning than. If you remember, we said that if I wanted to say, for example, I am more bossy than my sister, it would go yo soy, I am, yo soy más, more bossy, más mandón que than mi hermana, for example. Yo soy más mandón que mi hermana. If I wanted to say Rafa, because Rafa is a name in Spanish, a boy name, it's short for Rafael. So Rafa and Isabel are two Spanish names. Isabel's clearly a girl's name. If I want to say Rafa is taller than Isabel, we can't actually say taller in Spanish. We have to say more tall than. So it's the same pattern always. It's más alta, or sorry, más alto que. Más alto que. So Rafa is more tall than Isabel. Would go Rafa es más alto que Isabel. How would that change, by the way, guys, if we wanted to say Isabel is more tall than Rafa? What subtle, small change would take place? So it would be Isabel es más alta. Now, we would have to use the feminine form of the adjective alto, which is alta with an A, because we're describing Isabel firstly, aren't we? So we're saying Isabel is more tall than Rafa. Isabel es más alta que Rafa. Okay? And just to say as well, it's very easy to make negatives in Spanish. So if I wanted to say I am not, it's simply no soy. If I wanted to say he is not or he isn't, no es. And the same for she isn't, no es. So now what I want to do is introduce you to the whole of the verb, okay, in the present tense, of which there are 6 parts. And verbs are always listed in dictionaries in this order. It goes yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas. 6 parts, where yo is I, tú is you when it's just one person, you. Él is he, ella, she, and they both have this S form for is. Nosotros somos, we are. Vosotros is the form for you, but when you mean more than one person and you're addressing you, in other words, when there's 2 or more people, okay? So, for example, if I was in class and I wanted to say, could you open your books at page 93, I'm talking about you as a whole class, I would be talking in the vosotros you, okay? I don't want to worry too much about this form except to make you aware that it's there because you're not going to use it much in the GCSE. Ellos, ellas, son. So this is they are. Okay, so we've got I am, you are, when there's one you. He, she is. We are, nosotros somos. You, kind of all, as in more 2 or more people. You are. And ellos, ellas, son, they are. And it, depending on whether the ellos would be for a group of men or males, when you're talking about they. Ellas would be for a group of females, girls or women. Where you've got a mixture of boys and girls, you would use ellos, okay, the masculine form. Now, so just to, before I go on to that actually, just to ask you just to consider how we would use these. As an example, if we wanted to say, here's our adjectives from earlier. So just a reminder, in fact, it would be a good idea if you just look at those, pause me again quickly, and just in your mind think, how many of those do I know now know the meaning of? Okay, so put me on pause, come back, and I'll just quickly go through them again. Okay, so antipatico. We know antipatico means mean or nasty, and it pairs usually with simpatico, which means nice or kind. We paired it earlier, though, with cariñoso, which has got the word caring almost entirely in it, hasn't it? Look, C-A-R-I-N, caring. Yeah, it's that sort of idea. Trying to think of other words that we would use in English for cariñoso. Loving would be another one. Affectionate. So it's caring, loving, affectionate, cariñoso. And actually, guys, in Spain and Mexico and the rest of the Spanish-speaking world, you'll often hear people addressing one another as cariño or cariña, meaning darling. That's probably the best translation of it. Cariño, cariño, cariña, depending on whether the darling is a boy or a girl or a male or a female. And that's really common, cariña. Cariñoso, caring, or affectionate or loving. Gracioso, funny. What did I pair that with in the pairs earlier? It was, I think, serio. So we got funny, serious. Gracioso, serio. And be careful because gracioso is funny. We need to be aware that fun is a different adjective, and which of these adjectives is fun? It is divertido or divertido. And divertido, I paired that one up with aburrido, meaning boring. So divertido, fun, aburrido, boring. Listo means clever or smart, and it can also mean ready or are you prepared? Do you remember that from a few episodes ago? So if I said listo in that tone of voice, I'm probably asking, are you ready? To a boy, that would be. If I said lista, that would be to a girl. Okay, are you ready? Prepared? Kind of thing. But it also means clever or intelligent, listo. And that's how we're using it today. So clever, what might be a good opuesto, opposite? Well, tonto, silly. Listo, tonto. Listo, tonto. If you want to say stupid, as in not very clever, it's probably estúpido would be a good one, and it's easy to remember, isn't it? It's got an E on the front. Estúpido or estúpida is stupid. Tonto's got the idea of sort of just silly, really, with slightly different meaning. Trabajador, hard-working. El opuesto, perezoso, lazy. Trabajador, perezoso. And the female form of trabajador is trabajadora, with an A on the end. Okay? So let's just try a couple of these verbally for you to see if you've got the hang of this. So if I wanted to say he is hardworking, it's going to be él es trabajador. Except you don't need the L unless you really need to emphasize that it's a he that you're talking about. But usually it's obvious from the conversation or what's gone before. You know that who you're talking about. So usually just es trabajador, but if you wanted to emphasize it's he, you could say él es trabajador. How would you say you are lazy? Meaning just you, one person. Tú eres perezoso. Or perezosa if you're accusing a girl of being lazy. Tú eres perezosa or perezoso. But you can just say eres perezoso. And here we come to an important point, guys, in Spanish, and that is the formation of questions, because it is really quite simple in Spanish. If I want to make a statement, you are lazy, I say eres perezoso. Eres perezoso. You are lazy. Statement. Okay. If I wanted to just make that a question and ask you, are you lazy? All I do is go, eres perezoso? Eres perezoso? So the change in voice when we're speaking is enough to indicate that that's a question. It's as simple as that. Eres perezoso? Are you lazy? Or more literally, you are lazy. You are lazy. Eres perezoso? If I wanted to ask, are you funny? Are you funny? Do you think you're funny? Eres graciosa? Or gracioso, if it's a boy. Eres gracioso? If I want to make the statement, you are funny. You are definitely funny. It will be eres gracioso. Hombre, eres gracioso. You are funny. Tío. Next, how are we going to say we are mean or nasty? So that is going to be the full version. Nosotros somos antipáticos. And you probably know why I've put an S on the end of that. Nosotros somos antipáticos. We are mean. And you've got to remember that adjectives agree in Spanish. So when we say agree, what we mean by that, or one thing we mean by it, is if we're talking in the plural, you have to add an S or an ES, depending on what the adjective is, to the end. So somos is plural, isn't it? When we talk about we, we're talking about more than one person. So it'd be nosotros somos antipáticos. Or just somos antipáticos. You don't need nosotros because this very distinctive mossy ending for we, which is the same for all verbs, the Spanish know, they can hear that. Somos, they hear mos, they know that that is we. You don't need nosotros, the actual word for we. Just somos antipáticos, we are mean. If I wanted to change that into a question, by the way, and say, are we, which would be a very weird thing to ask ourselves, wouldn't it? Are we mean? Are we mean? It's going to be somos antipáticos as a sort of reflexive question. Yes, I think that's the right word, a reflexive question to ourselves. So next, how would you say they are? They are hard-working. And bearing in mind you need to make the adjective plural because they is clearly plural. They is clearly plural. How are you going to say they are? And let's say it's a bunch of girls or women that you're talking about. So they are hardworking. Okay, it's going to be Ellas son trabajadores. Okay, now again, this leads me to another nice little revision point. And if you want to make something plural and it ends with a vowel, it's really easy. You just add an S. So for example, well, hopefully we know what the vowels are, or in Spanish the word for a vowel is un vocal or vocal. So los vocales, and they are A, E, I, O, U. 5 vowels, A, E, I, O, U. So it's really easy to pluralize something that ends with a vowel because you just stick an S on the end. So listo would become listos. Lista would become listas. Perezoso, perezosos. Tonto, tontos. Tonta, tontas, and so on. But where we have a consonant, which is any letter of the alphabet which isn't a vowel, or at least that's the way I think of it, some grammarians or experts might argue with that and say, well, that's not quite right, but it's the simplest way to think of it. So your vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. Everything else treat as a consonant. So anything that ends with a consonant, like an R, for example here, you have to add ES to make it plural. You can't just slap an S on the end, because that would be trabajadores. Doesn't quite feel right, does it? So this would become trabajadores with an ES on the end. Okay? Actually, as it happens, all of these other adjectives have got vowels on the end. Okay? Another example would be the adjective for bossy, which is mandon in the male form. So if you wanted to make that plural, it would be mandones, mandones. Okay? Now, so we've got I am, yo soy, tú eres, you are, él es, he is, ella es, she is, nosotros somos, we are, vosotros sois, which is you plural are, where there's two or more people. When you're describing you, what you mean is two people or more. Could be a huge group of people, couldn't it? Ellos son, they are. Ellas son, they are, depending on whether it's they boys or they girls. Okay, hopefully that's clear. Now, just to add a little bit more of a layer to this, if we just look at these questions here, I don't know why I've put this twice. We don't need it twice, but como is the question word how in Spanish. So como means how. But you have to be careful with it, because where they use how, we might use something different. So if I wanted to say, what is he like in Spanish, I would actually say, como es, como es. What is he like? Como es. What that literally translates as is, how is he? How is he? Now, we would understand in English, if we were asked that, we'd be thinking that you're asking the question, well, how is he today? Is he in a good mood, bad mood? Is he happy, sad, angry, whatever? So we'd understand that as kind of mood. Or it might also be, how is he? Is he well? Is he ill? Is he whatever? So not in Spanish. The word, if you ask the question, como es, how is he or how is she, because it's the same question, what we're asking is, what is the person like? Okay, in terms of carácter y físicamente también, so physically and character-wise. So you have to just be aware that that is how you ask that question. If you wanted to say, what are they like? It's, how are they? Which would be como son, como son, como son. So if we were having a conversation in Spanish about, I don't know, my parents, for example, and you wanted to ask me, what are your parents like? You would ask me, como son. And parents, by the way, is strangely the word padres in Spanish, which actually means dads, if you think about it, because padre is the word for dad, P-A-D-R-E. Padres, dads, actually doesn't mean dads, it means parents, padres. And very confusingly, the word for relatives, your relatives, your aunts, uncles, cousins, and all the rest of it, is parientes, like the word parents, parientes. So that's a little bit of a false friend, and we'll talk about false friends later. But you see the word parientes in Spanish, and you think, oh, that means parents. It doesn't. It means relatives. And the word for parents is padres. P-A-D-R-E-S, padres. So, if I want to say, how are your parents? ¿Cómo son tus padres, for example? And the final layer on this is something that we should already be familiar with, is these little words that I call intensifiers. So words like muy, very, un poco, a bit, bastante, quite, demasiado, too, as in T-O-O-2, meaning too boring, too lazy, demasiado perezoso, too funny, which would be an odd thing to say, but demasiado gracioso, and so on. Tan, meaning so, but again, really careful you have to be with this, because it's tan, so in the sense of so boring, so clever, so hard-working. It doesn't mean so in all the other ways that we use so in English. It's strictly for when you're using it in front of an adjective to mean so serious, so stupid, so hard-working, so funny, and so on, and so on. And what I'd really like you to focus on today, because I'm hoping you probably know these, is a really nice intensifier, which is slightly odd, and I'll explain to you why. But if you say de verdad or de verdad, verdad is to do with truth or true, and de verdad means truly or true, truly. And if you want to say somebody is truly boring or really boring, first of all, it comes after the adjective, which is why I've put these three little dots before this. So if you wanted to say he is really or truly boring, as a real emphasis thing, you could say él es aburrido de verdad, meaning truly. Okay? And verdad is to do with truth. Okay, and we see it in lots of different forms. For instance, if we're playing true or false type activities, false is falso, easy, but true is verdadero. So it's this word verdad with an ERO on the end, verdadero. If I wanted to say the truth is that, I was going to make a statement about something. The truth is that Spanish is really interesting. I would say la verdad es. La verdad es. The truth is that. La verdad es que el español es muy interesante para mí, for me. La verdad es que, the truth is that, el español es muy interesante, for example, or me interesa mucho. So we've got a collection of intensifiers that we can put before, and in this case after, our adjectives. We know how to ask the question now, what is somebody or something like? It's como, and then the right bit of the verb ser. If I wanted to ask myself reflexively, what am I like? What am I like? It would be como soy. Como soy. Oh, I'm a funny, interesting, good-looking person. Soy una persona graciosa, guapa, trabajadora, whatever it is you want to say. Okay. Now, I hope that this is going to work. I don't want to keep talking all the way through this video. So I've given you 12 questions or sentences or phrases that I want you to translate into Spanish. Here is the little sort of word mat that I've just shown you with the different forms of ser. Soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. Soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. The different parts of the verb ser, the describing verb, with the adjectives and everything else that we've just talked about. I'm going to just quickly go back to this slide because there's something else I want to explain to you about verbs in general, which if you start remembering this, it will help you very generally with the verb forms. The first one is that the you form of all verbs, this to form, when you're talking about you, just one person, almost always, in fact, I would go as far as to say the part apart from one tense, always ends with an S. So if you remember that, it might help. Always ends with an S. The we form, the nosotros form, always ends with mos. So when you hear mos on the end of a verb, it's an indication that it's we doing the action. I think almost always, if not always, you hear mos. And the they form always ends with an N. Nearly always. There's one exception. So it kind of follows, although this verb is an irregular verb, which we will look at in a bit more detail, the meaning of regular and irregular verbs, it still follows this basic S for you, mos for we, N for they pattern. Okay, so try and bear that in mind. So, hopefully this is clear enough on this slide for you to be able to pause the video now. And I would really urge you to write these out and do this exercise. I've given you the words for the film and the theme park, which appear in 11 and 12 down here. And they're really just to show you that you don't just need to be talking about people when you're using the verb ser. You can talk about things and places as well. Okay, so the same forms apply. So have a go. Don't spend too long on it. Don't worry about making it super neat. You don't have to write the English out unless you want to. Just write out the Spanish for these 12 little sentences. There's the information that you need to do it. Come back to me when you're done and we will correct them together. Okay. Bueno, entonces vamos a corregir. Corregir is to correct. Corregir. We're going to. Vamos a corregir juntos. Together, juntos. Bueno. So, she is very caring and quite funny. You should have had. Ella es muy cariñosa, because it's a she, y bastante graciosa. Okay, quite is bastante, graciosa, funny. Okay, ella es muy cariñosa y bastante graciosa. We are so lazy and truly silly. Nosotros somos tan perezosos y tontos de verdad. So that's misspelled, by the way. It should have an R there. It should be verdad with an R there. So nosotros somos tan perezosos y tontos de verdad, where de verdad means right, truly or really. And you just have to remember that this one comes after the describing word. So look, if we go back to our little sheet here, muy, un poco, muy, very, un poco, a bit, bastante, quite, demasiado, too, and tan, so, all come before the adjective. So we have tan perezosos, muy cariñosa, but de verdad comes afterwards. All right? And at this point, I need to tell you and remind you that you don't need ella and nosotros. The Spanish will probably just say es muy cariñosa y bastante graciosa, or somos tan perezosos y tontos de verdad. Okay? They, females, are so fun but too hard-working. Ellas son, because it's they, if you're going to include the ellos or ellas, ellas son tan divertidas, but, demasiado trabajadoras. Okay? And look how these adjectives agree. We're talking about they and we're talking about females. So we're looking at female and we're looking at plural, which is why we've got divertidas. So you've got the A because it's feminine and the S because it's plural. And the same with trabajadoras. Okay? Trabajadoras. Actually, that's not quite right. It should be trabajadores. No, it is correct. Trabajadoras. I need to check that. Isabel is truly clever but quite boring. Isabel es lista de verdad pero bastante aburrida. Okay, so we got lista de verdad, really clever or truly clever, but pero, quite boring, bastante aburrida. Feminine, because we're talking about Isabel, lista, aburrida with the A on the end. And it's S, isn't it, guys? Because we're talking about the way to do this. If you're faced with names of people in your sentences and you're not sure whether to use soy, eres, es, somos, sois, or son, think about if you were to create a string of sentences about the person or the people and ask yourself how you would replace the word, for example, here, Isabel. So if we wanted to say, Isabel is very clever. Isabel is extremely hardworking. Isabel goes to a top school in Kent. Isabel does this, Isabel does that. We wouldn't say Isabel in every sentence, would we? We would just start saying she, wouldn't we? And so we want the ella. We would want the ella form, which is S. She is S. Okay? So, Isabel es lista de verdad, pero bastante aburrida. Jaime, so the word, we would recognize this almost as the word Jamie, wouldn't we? The name Jamie, but in Spanish it's spelt like this. There's no I, and it's pronounced Jaime. Jaime, so Jaime is so funny but too lazy is going to be. Jaime es tan gracioso, is so funny, tan is so, pero demasiado perezoso, too lazy. Demasiado is too lazy. Raúl, another name for a boy in Spanish. Raúl and I. Now, which form of the verb ser are you going to use for Raúl and I? I mean, we need are, so which one is it going to be? So think about this. If I wanted to say, tell a story about Raúl and I, it's going to go, Raúl and I are brilliant friends. Raúl and I go to the centre of Hastings every weekend. Raúl and I go to lots of shops. Raúl and I love the video games shop. Raúl and I have a coffee in Waterstones. Raúl and I go to Alexandra Park if it's a nice day. We wouldn't keep saying Raúl and I, would we? What would we change that to? We would say we, wouldn't we? Okay, we would substitute saying Raúl and I every time for we. So you want the nosotros form here, somos. And it looks like this. Raúl y yo, Raúl and I, somos, kind of we are, serious, serios y un poco antipáticos. We're serious and a bit mean. Okay? And again, look, it's plural because it's Raúl and I, it's we, it's plural. Okay? Isabel and Jaime. So again, think about this. Isabel and Jamie are great friends. Isabel and Jamie go to the cinema most weekends. Isabel and Jamie love to dance. Isabel and Jamie are going to get married, and so on. We wouldn't keep saying Isabel and Jamie, would we? What would we replace that with? Well, it's going to be they, isn't it? Okay, so they are so funny but quite silly. So which form of ser do you need? You need the ellos, ellas form. It's son for they are. Okay, Isabel y Jaime son tan graciosos pero bastante tontos. My friends and I are very smart but a bit lazy. Mis amigos y yo son muy listos pero un poco perezosos. Okay, pero is but. So again, look, mis amigos y yo, my friends and I. My friends and I get on well. My friends and I like to listen to music. My friends and I go to the skate park on Saturdays. My friends and I my friends and I catch the bus to school together every day. So again, we wouldn't keep saying my friends and I, would we? What would we say? We would say we, wouldn't we? And in fact, if you were on the ball today, you will spot my deliberate mistake, because mis amigos y yo would not be followed by son. it would be followed by, and I'm going to correct this as we speak because that's annoying. It would be mis amigos y yo somos is what you should have had. So well done if you got that right, and a slap on the wrist for me because I got it wrong. Okay. And there was another mistake that I'd made somewhere as well, I think. Where was it? I can't remember. So, back to our corrections. So, mis amigos y yo somos muy listos, pero un poco perezosos. So it's we, the we form. Jaime is not very funny, but he's quite caring. So this should be fairly straightforward for you guys. It is Jaime no es muy gracioso, pero es bastante cariñoso. Are you, and we're talking about the singular you, the to version here, are you a bit silly and really lazy? I realise that these questions aren't, these questions and sentences aren't particularly things that you would say, but the idea is to practice the adjectives and the formation of this verb ser. So, are you a bit silly and really lazy? So, all you do is you use, well, the eres form for you are in this way. ¿Eres tú un poco tonto y perezoso de verdad? You can put the to in afterwards. So what you've actually done is you've switched the position of to and eres. So to eres means you are, and you can move that to the front and say eres tú, and then it's clear that it's a question. But again, you don't need the to, and you could just say eres un poco tonto y perezoso de verdad. But if you are going to include the to in a question form, you have to invert the two words. So you go from tú eres, you are, to eres tú, are you, literally. In the same way that if you wanted to say is she, and you want to include the word for she, which is ella, is she would be es ella muy lista? Is she very clever? But you can just say es muy lista. Is she clever? The film is quite funny but too long. Now we're moving away from describing people to show you that the same rules apply. So the film is la película. Here it is in this little mini glossary. La película, the film. So the film is quite funny but too long is going to be la película es bastante graciosa pero demasiado larga. Why is it larga with an A and graciosa with an A? Because a film is a feminine thing. It's got la in front of it. It ends with an A. It's a noun that's got an A on the end, which tells you, if you remember, that gender-wise this is likely to be female. So, la película es bastante graciosa pero demasiado larga. And something that is really likely to confuse you, which I'd like to try and clear up right now, is that demasiado is not an adjective. This is an intensifier from this navy blue or dark blue group here. You don't have to change the O to an A with that. These do not change. You don't say un poca, for example, or demasiada. It's always the same, pero demasiado larga, but the adjectives themselves do have to agree. Finally, finalmente, the theme park is really fun or truly fun. Okay? If you wrote this, well done. El parque de atracciones es divertido de verdad. It's truly fun. Okay? Divertido because it is el parque. Look up here. Parque is masculine. If you remember, you might not, that the three classic endings for feminine nouns are an A. Here we see that with película. Words that end with ion. I-O-N words in Spanish, the nouns are feminine. And usually there is an accent on that O. So I-O with an accent N. Any word that you see ending like that is likely to be feminine. And The other group of words that are usually feminine is any word that ends with dad, D-A-D. So anything else, it's a fair bet that it's masculine. So here we have the word parque, parque, and sure enough, it is masculine. So if you had to guess at whether something is masculine or feminine, ask yourself, does it end with an A, the word? Does it end with dad? Or does it end with ion, in which case it's probably feminine? Anything else, probably going to be masculine. Okay? That's it for today. We're at the 3/4 of an hour mark. I hope that's been useful. Just a reminder before I go, by the way, that Memorise and Quizlet, level 12, I think it's level 12, you've got the verb to be, ser. So if you want to practice these forms, soy, eres, es, somos, son. I've actually left the sois, the you plural bit out, because it's hard to remember and you're not really going to use it very much. So soy, eres, es, somos, son. These are the key forms that you will need. And I've also included some past tense stuff, like era for I was. So if you wanted to say before I was quite shy, antes is before, antes era bastante tímido. Now I'm more confident, ahora soy más seguro. When I was young, cuando era pequeño, actually means literally little or small. When I was small, cuando era pequeño, really nice phrase to know. Or when I was young, I was not confident would be cuando era pequeño, or pequeña, by the way, if you're a girl. No era segura or seguro. I wasn't confident. Seguro, the way to remember this adjective, which can mean a few things, is to think maybe, first of all, of the word secure in English. So, seguro can mean safe, as in safe and secure. Seguro. Just change the G to a C. But if you're describing a person as seguro, it translates very often as meaning confident. Okay, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? You're kind of secure in yourself. You're confident in yourself. So it's a very nice adjective to describe people. Seguro or no seguro. Timido is easy, isn't it? Because that means shy, timid. Timid actually is the English word for shy, has the same meaning. So I would encourage you strongly to be using Memorise and Quizlet alongside these videos, because I'm explaining to you how things work in Spanish, but if you want to expand your vocabulary and actually remember these words, you have to do the repetitive learning on Memorise and Quizlet. So that's it for today. Hasta luego. Hasta la próxima vez. Until the next time. Adiós, chicos y chicas.